So welcome back to the last longer stretch of today. You know, the whole morning and also up until parts of the afternoon, we were really looking at why do we need to do this? What do we know already? What's the urgency? What's the transformation journey? Who was part of it? What did they take away? We got a couple of nice sort of experiences from people who've been doing this transformation journey program. So we heard from Louis and we heard from Adam Garfunkel, and Radoslav was talking about being a host of a program at ING. We're now going one step deeper. You know, that was sort of the base camp. Why the hell do we need to do all this? And now we're going into planning the route, which is the second of 4 workshops in the journey track, where we will go deeper into some of the practical outcomes of applying some of the methods of reporting 3.0. The planning the route part is really, as I showed you in the introduction, really getting your strategy right after you know what's necessary, and then how do you plan the implementation of that before you actually do it. So it's the interim step before really going on the mountain climb with your ropes team and dependent from each other, but really having the map laid out for you, how you want to do this. And during the transformation journey programs, we had a couple of participants who really used that also for further clarity around their own cases. Personally on the one hand, but also professionally and with their organization. And we're going to show 3 examples of that. First will be Martina Prox from FSLCI, that stands for Forum for Sustainability for Life Cycle Innovation. So that's the whole gang around the world around life cycle analysis. And I've been to a conference last year in Berlin where they already tried to aim to really look beyond just the pure life cycle analysis community. And I felt a lot of frustration of people who are doing LCAs, life cycle analysis, and the recognition of that is rather mixed. You know, if the outcomes of an LCA is as expected, everything is fine. If the outcomes of an LCA are not as expected, then there's something wrong with the methodology. So there's a little bit of this, which also I think sort of nudged Martina to say, well, do I need to go to the transformation journey program? I said, yeah, you know, I'm going to do this. And even though it had a focus on sustainable finance, I think you really made the most out of it, and we will hear your example. And then we have Marcia Bos, who joined us when she was still with VGZ, one of the biggest healthcare insurance companies here in the Netherlands, and was actually already sort of on the move towards moving out of the organization to form an incubation hub that can then recommend things back into the organization. And it is a perfect example of what I said earlier. If you need to break through, you first need to break out. That's some of the things that you very often hear in corporations, that innovation within an organization with all the hierarchy and straitjackets and processes and procedures very often simply doesn't work. So it's better to go step out of the organization to do what's necessary and have the slack to do it before actually recommending things back into the organization. So that's a great example. And then the third one, which we're going to hear, it's even more forward-looking. It's from Erik Friedeberg and Magdalena Matei from the Scale of Significance. I first met them last year when there was the idea of a different sort of accounting, because what accounting now is doesn't deliver on maybe on some sort of value, but not on the values. So is there a way to do things differently? And that was the starting point of the Scale of Significance, and I've been in touch with them since then, and they became in Manifesto, which is the organization that Erik works for, who already employs a different style of accounting, which is way more really coaching, I would describe it. And if I describe it wrong, you will definitely correct me then, Erik. Was really thinking, well, again, you know, let's step out of this, make this a not-for-profit, and really invent, experiment, and see how far we get. And they will give us sort of a report of where they are at this moment. It's an ongoing process and project. So these are three, from my perspective, really wonderful illustrative examples of how people made use of the transformation journey program for their own benefit and for their own, I would say, happiness. Maybe also well-being, we'll see. But I think that's enough for, as an introduction. Let's start with Martina and look at the example of FSLCI. Martina, the floor is yours. Oh, yeah.
Do I have to do anything with the mic? No, it's on.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, Ralph. I'm glad to be here and to share my experience of the Transformation Journey program. And the first, I would like to introduce to my title. The title here is Mainstreaming the Use of Lifecycle Information for Innovation. And for those of you who have been also part of the transformation journeys, you know what is the reporting free strategy continuum. When I heard first about it and got to learn it, it was I think it was in the first conference, maybe 2 years ago. I was immediately a fan of it, but I wasn't capable of applying it. And during the transformation journey, I definitely learned to apply it and to value it even more. Who is FSLCI? FSLCI is a member-based NGO, and we started around 5 years ago. We was a group of 7 people to found that NGO and bring together the lifecycle community, because the lifecycle community never had an association or a home or a member-based organization that could be the speaks organ of the community. So there's a lot of academics, there's a lot of conferences, people meet, but there's no driving organization that brings together this community. And that's what FSLCI has started to be. It has around 300 members right now, so in 5 years growing. And last year, as Ralph mentioned, hosting the first Lifecycle Innovation Conference in Berlin, a similar size like Reporting 3.0 conferences. And we made quite good experiences with having a traditional conference program, workshop, more interactive, and even ad hoc a barcamp track of full 3 days, which was highly innovative and highly interactive, and we were amazed that you can create a conference program for full 3 days by just asking people in the audience, stand up in the morning of the first day and say, I want to offer a session on that. Who would come and join me in that? And people raise their hands and say, yes, I'm in there. And I would say the most inspiring part happened in such sessions. And FSLCI has been an advocation partner for Reporting 3.0, and that's thanks to Ralph, who met me in Japan in talking about FSLCI and talking about Reporting 3.0 and the Thrivability Foundation, and then said, yeah, that somehow needs to go together. So that is aligned, and we can help each other to gain relevance. And so, third conference for me, first time a speaker. That was only the introduction, please. If I try to explain people why the lifecycle community is also doing what they do, and if you ask the individuals, they all will tell you a story around this beautiful blue planet. So why do we do what we do? Because we have a notion of urgency and we have a notion of a need to change. This lifecycle community has been around for 30 years, I would say. I started to work with them mid of the 90s, but there was already life cycle analysis in the 80s, and even starting with Coca-Cola in the 70s. So it's not that this is a new concept. And if we think what it is about, we are talking about a life cycle from raw material, but still there's always something that is called end of life if we talk about life cycle assessment. So we are missing to close circles. So life cycle assessment is very much a child of the linear economy. And it has still to learn to measure also a circular economy. So that is one topic we have to look at. Another thing, I wanted to ask you, who has experience? Who has done LCA here in the room? Done? Who has looked at results of LCA? Almost 10%. Who has an opinion about LCA? I'm not asking what kind of opinion right now. Okay. Several people are somehow familiar with the concept. What this community and life cycle assessment, even with this big vision and this big need, is what we are doing today is just a drop in the ocean in terms of impact. There's not many products and LCA has been done, and not many are knowing that LCA can be done also for organizations, so that you can have a product perspective and a corporate perspective. There's a global network of national LCA networks. FSLCI is linking them, connecting them, bringing them together. There's international actors like UN Environment, like the ISO, like CTEC. So it's not that there's nothing. Still, the focus has been very narrow on data and methodology. And that's part of that frustration and boring type of conversations that you are stuck to the nitty-gritty detail of if this allocation rule is right and that weighting should be done like this, and it's not changing anything on the big scale. So what's missing? And during my conversations, and I'm also bringing that back to the community with Reporting 3.0, it became very obvious to make all this relevant. The scaling up is missing, so that it's really used in the whole community, and the context is missing. So the context, accounting for context-based sustainability. Current LCA studies and LCA assessments are only able to tell you how it is getting a bit less bad. And everybody hates it. That's not a secret. We are not content with that anymore. And so we are getting around that and understanding this in conferences. And in this picture, you see me mapping together with Ralph in the strategy continuum what is coming now very soon in the next slide. I've seen just this year that we are not the only ones in the lifecycle community thinking of there's missing this context. So there's a French organization, it's called SCORE LCA, it's industry-based, and they started to ask their members, and it's hard to read, but the first thing is we need to have LCA studies with a planetary boundary approach and seeing what is this meaning, what we are assessing there. And so that had the highest score of the audience, and it was around 100 people, of life cycle community people. So, the strategy continuum. How do we start? We start with backcasting. We start where we want to go. And we start in that corner. We want to have a broad use of life cycle information in all decision making, innovation related, and driving innovation. So that's where we want. On all levels, that's where we want to go. And then we look where we are today. We have product level LC, lifecycle information, no context. We have organization LCA, but also no context to that. We have our current LCA community very much thinking of incremental improvements and trying to think this is a good achievement. You also have meso and macro level activity in terms of sectors, but also not context-based. You have the life cycle impact assessment, which looks into carrying capacity of certain ecosystems, so you have ecosystem functioning involved in that. So it's not totally far from at least the sustaining part here in the middle, but it's not really moving very far here. It's starting to connect with science-based targets. So you can see that it comes together, science-based targets in the context of climate impacts and life cycle assessment. So same people are doing that work. What is currently not available is life cycle assessment multi-capital based. So that's a to-do we identified when working with the strategy continuum. LCA context-based would then be the next one, also including going to the meso level. And up to now, I've not ever seen an LCA being able or being capable of assessing regenerative aspects of systems properly. You just have no solution to that until now. And scaling through the regional regeneration hubs to linking back, especially the sometimes very academic, even if it's a practical industry-related activity, but linking it back to habitats, to people on the ground. So making use of that global network of passionate and experienced practitioners in impact assessment with the local and the habitat level to measure what are their achievements and to make them measurable. And where we want to get that we don't have any negative impacts anymore, and what we need for that is transparent and trusted data and no data gaps. So data gaps need to be filled. We have regional LCA happening already, and there's more emphasis on that. And we want to have this data reflected in reporting, accounting, and all the data available that it's connecting the three levels, the meso, the micro, and the macro level. So we have a missing link to close for the innovation community. We need to bridge to the different actors in the sustainability community, and especially also work much closer with reporting 3.0 and getting much more clarity in the communication of results. So stronger collaboration is what is one of the analysis outcomes from what we need to do, and we can and have already started to do that. So how we get engaged next? We will have a bar camp, a full bar camp day on the 26th of November in Berlin, and exploring in the community on all conferences that the lifecycle community starts now, how we can get people aligned in creating experiences with multi-capital LCA. Because it's not that FSLCI is doing that, it's the members who have to drive that and to bring that into the community. And with the next board, the member-based organization elects a board, and that is happening the next time in August. We will use the strategy continuum to bring the board on track. And at least one of my proposals will be, let's see if they go for that, we design a transformation journey program for the lifecycle community. Ask me next year how far we got with that. I don't know. And that's where you can find us, and that's our additional information. And with that, I think I hand over the mic.
So thank you very much, Martina. Indeed, Martina and I, we know each other for so many years and have like ups and downs in connecting with each other. And that was, of course, purpose-based, whenever there was a need. And this has been a real pleasure working with Martina on this sort of community-based movement forward for a whole community like the LCA community. And I've been seeing LCA since my time at Siemens at the product level movement there to find out more about LCAs. And it has always sort of struck me that there has been little forward movement over 20 years, more or less, with the same sort of focus and not broadening the scope. So that was really a wonderful experience, and doing this work together is really very fulfilling and also hopefully further enlightening for both of us. Great, thank you. Thank you. We'll move to the next speaker. Please have a seat. We'll move to the next speaker. That is Marcia. As I already explained, she's working now for an organization called Salut, but she's actually able to say more about that yourself. I don't have to do that. Yeah? So, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Well, thank you for having me. Warning up front, my Dutch is way better than my English. So when I get lost in translation, I'm going to ask the guys over here to help me translate to English. So you know that I'm going to do that. This is me. My name is Marcia. I live in this beautiful city. Tomorrow someone told us it is a very practical city. So I'm going to tell you a very practical story about a health cooperative changing from ensuring health to improving health to well-being. But first, we do a crash course, health insurance in Holland, because I realized only 2-3 days ago that not everybody knows how it works. I think, can I see hands? People who know how it works? Even Dutch people don't. No, okay, that's good. I put this in. We've got private health insurers, but highly regulated. Mandatory cover, so everybody has to have healthcare. If you don't have healthcare, you get a fine. Benefit is determined by the state, not by the health insurers, like many people think. There is no selection, so everybody can get basic healthcare. You can switch once a year from healthcare insurer if you want to. Most people switch because of cost and nothing else. Premium is about 1,400 euros a year. That's only half of what's needed. In taxes, you pay the same amount again. Deductible, 385 per year. So when you go to the hospital, for instance, you first have to pay 385 euros before you get benefits. Children under 18 are free. Questions? Very okay. A little bit of numbers about VGZ. It's for Dutch standards, a big corporation. We've got almost 11 billion turnover a year. Employees, it's going down very fast. We're about 1,700 at the moment. This is 2017. Market share is going up a little. Second largest insurer, and really important, not for profit. So the money we make goes back to the members. It's a member organization. When I started working here in 2002, way back, I really liked it that it was not for profit and it had a social responsibility to get healthcare accessible and affordable. During my time there, I realized that healthcare is a lot of times only curing symptoms and not curing the causes. But in the system we work, and I was not the only one, a lot of colleagues see it that way, but in the system it's very difficult to change because there is no financial way to look at it at another perspective. In 2018, the board of directors, we had a strategy that's called appropriate care, in which we are trying to get better care for less cost. They think that we get the strategy in 2025. They think they have reached the goals we set for that strategy. So they decided, well, we're a member corporation. What else can we add value to the members? How can we do that? How do we have to add value? They didn't know the answer, so they decided that a very small group of people, about 7 or 8 people from the organization, but also from the outside, were going to think about that, get the time off, and trying to find a way to add value about 2025 and further on, because it's a member organization and they wanted to add value. It's a very big question to get. How can we add value in 2025? In our organization, we're really good at thinking about those things within the organization. We think we know all the solutions, we implement them, and after implementing, we came to the conclusion, wow, that doesn't work. People look at it the other way. So we thought that would not be the good way to start with this big question. So what did we do? I've heard it, Ralph told about it today. We started through review as a process to go find the answers to the question. Very short. It says you can look at the future and you can see it if you're listening to people in your surroundings. So we thought, well, that's a good way to start. The board of directors was a little hesitant about that because it's a financial organization. They drive by numbers. And we say, well, we don't know where we're going. We're going to start with this and we'll see. And they're going to bring it to us. So it was a really exciting step to take. So what did we do? I've said here rights holders because we started with a stakeholder analysis. When I see how big the group is, it's exactly like reporting 3.0 says in our rights holders. There are no stakeholders in here. It's a cooperative anyway. So what did we do? We had 2-hour interviews with more than 50 people outside the organization, inside also, from tech, research, banks, but all civilians, injuries, you name it. The question we asked everybody to start the interview was, what means health for you personally? So we made the question personal. What are your values? I think Erik is going to refer to that, and Magdalena also on a later moment. So we started to ask the values. What are the values? We had a really good experience. We had 50 interviews, really in-depth conversations. Some of the people we still see because we had a good connection. It led to 5 trends, which are, I think, not very revolutionary. A shift from sickness to prevention, patient in control, everything revolves around the patient or the citizen. Sharing data is going to be easier and more effective between who wants to share. And we're using a platform for existing innovations because we discovered there is already so much innovation, you don't have to make it. It's there, you have to bring it to the carers and to the patients. Well, this is not really revolutionary, but for a health insurer who is about ensuring health and not about healthcare and not about health, is really revolutionary. So we went back to the mission of VGZ, because we still had the VGZ board looking over our shoulders. The mission of VGZ is working together for a healthier Netherlands. The 5 trends we just saw fit perfectly. But in the system, it doesn't work, because health is financial. There is no finance system to finance health. There's a finance system to finance healthcare, but not health. I'm struggling with the difference between health and healthcare. Is everybody understanding what I'm saying? Is health in a holistic way, more than only mental and physical? So we had a dilemma, because we found out that in the existing system of the healthcare insurer, there was no room to work on the 5 trends we saw, the 5 trends we're expecting to come to us in the future. So we had a good discussion with the board of directors, a very difficult discussion also, and we said it's not possible in the organization to do this, because there are always people saying the money they get, we can use to make this year or that year better, but not for the long term. The board of directors was very courageous, I think, because they decided that we had to have another entity. And we had to have an independent organization, a very small one, a foundation even, to make this step, to go from ensuring healthcare to improving health. So that's what we did. From June, last June, is only 18 days. We are an independent organization. We're only with 8 people, and we're the little boat over there, and we're trying to find out how we can improve health for all the citizens in Holland, to start with. We'll see if we'll go further than that. But not only for the members of VGZ, but it's bigger than that. We have a mission. I'm glad I didn't call it a purpose case. Improve the lifespan of Dutch citizens in perceived good health with 5 years and 2030. The people from Holland will recognize this, because there are a number of other institutions who have the same mission, only they have maybe 2 years, 2040, 2050, I've seen a couple of them. So we're all moving in the same direction, so that's good. But how are we going to do this? This is our vision. We're going to provide personalized health insights for everyone and offer advice and support for healthy behavior. We like to support people to live healthy, if they can. This is the how, oversight and overview and insight. You have direction and control, with as a result a healthier life. How we're going to do this, we don't know. We're experimenting at this moment. We have about 20 to 25 experiments running, and we're trying to find out what works, what doesn't work, and we're learning from there. And I think in about 2 or 3 years, we'll be more concrete than we are at the moment. Well, what could be the impact? Also, we're reporting 3.0. What could be an impact on a Dutch citizen? When he feels more healthy, participation will go up, job opportunity will get better, financial problems will go down, and education will go up. We think we're going to measure it if we're getting there. Same for our own small organization, Inspiring Jobs. When you look at the 7, 8 people we're working with, we're all intrinsically motivated. We want to get to the mission. And that's what the organization is going to bring to more people. Our reputation will go up, of course, by helping people getting healthy. We'll be an inspiration for others, I hope, so I'm going to try to do this more often. And I think we'll cooperate more. We see in reporting 3.0 in the transformation journey, we find each other to link and to get to help each other with this. Our ecosystem, we're trying to build an ecosystem. Well, short, healthy employees, meaningful jobs, inspiration, cooperation. Last is most important, I think. Possible impact on macro level is systems change. We see health isn't financially backed And we need to change that. We need to shift the money from healthcare to health, because there it starts. And we are only trying to repair what's already broken. We have to take care of it, that it's not going to be broken. That was it. Focus 2019. For this year, we're trying to measure health. What is it? Some PhDers are helping us with the framework and the metrics. Happy to share if we have it. We're going to gather the data and we're going to try to measure the impact on individuals and on communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I was actually most fascinated how your polo shirt fits to the tent, but I was distracted by just simply that. So this is a great example of really looking at the development of a systemic approach, which just doesn't only look at the micro level of just the organization and its benefits and burdens, but it's we actually missed the picture of the strategy continuum in here, where we've been doing this exercise during the transformation journey program, and we've also, like within Martina's example, we went through those different stages in the strategy continuum and then moving from micro to meso to macro, and you saw the sort of experimental guessing still at this moment, and what the impacts will actually be on the micro level, on the meso level, so the whole industry, and also on the habitat called the Netherlands. And on the portfolio of the insurer itself, all meso level in our perspective, and then what that means for the macro level and for the insurance providers and the government, and the way how finances of the healthcare system are going to be affected. And as you rightly say, this is an experiment, we don't know yet, but it can lead to way more new insight. We're going to be in close contact about that and see how you progress. So thank you very much for this. Please have a seat. Feel yourself cozy. And we'll move into our last of these three examples, which is the scale of significance. I was fascinated by the name right from the start, but Erik will tell a little bit about the origin. And Erik will do this together with Magdalena. I think first Erik and then move it to Magdalena. So Erik, come up and enjoy.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay,
Here's
I'll
the
leave it
clicker.
up there. She's going to use the slides. I'm just going to
Oh,
talk.
You're just going to do
I'm
the
just
pep talk.
going to, yeah, exactly,
Okay.
exactly. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Ralph, for having me here. I'm very proud to be here because this is really, you are in the most beautiful city of Holland at this moment, and you're at my university, not really at my university, but I studied here, so it's for me very great to be back here after so many years and then having a presentation up here. Yeah, I'm sorry, but I'm working in Amsterdam, so that's okay. Because there they have to learn how to work, and that's what we know in Rotterdam, so that's why I went to Amsterdam. So I'm sorry. I will tell you a little bit of my life, of the story of my life, and then why we are doing what we are doing, and then Magdalena will go more into detail. I'm very lucky to be the first, because we have 20 minutes together, so I hope I stick to the 10 minutes, so if I take more minutes, no, it will be, you're checking, okay, you would put them away. Okay. Well, as I said, I was born here, I studied here, and then I started my own company. I started my own company in which I helped entrepreneurs who were having financial problems. And in Holland, if you have financial problems as an entrepreneur, you can get a loan from the government. So the government asked us whether they should give a loan to the entrepreneurs. We coach and guide, whether they are viable, whether they wanted to really whether their business would be okay also in the future. So I did that for 15 years. I built a company up. About 25 people were working there, and after 15 years I said, well, I'm not really feeling comfortable anymore. I don't get any energy of it anymore, so I really want to change. I want to do something different. And I didn't get any energy more of it because where in the beginning, when you were working with the government, You could have nice products for entrepreneurs where you could really help entrepreneurs. And at this moment, or this moment, then it's more like the emphasis is more like on the process than on the entrepreneur itself. So the process has to be more effective, but it's not to help the entrepreneur anymore. So then I thought, well, it's not my cup of tea anymore, and I found somebody who wanted to lead my company. So then I said, well, you lead my company, and I'm going to do something different. But I didn't know what. So I sat at home, and I thought, what I'm going to do now. And I was looking back, and I thought the last 15 years I worked with a lot of entrepreneurs who were having financial problems. And why were they having financial problems? Now, what I found out, what I look back at, is that one of the most problems the entrepreneurs had, that they didn't have any actual figures, or it was too late the figures, or they didn't understand, or they really didn't have them. And at the same time, I found out that they didn't know what their dream anymore was. They started their company with a dream, as every entrepreneur does, but at that time they didn't know anymore what their dream was. So they were steerless. So they didn't have any figures. They were steerless. And what was most strange as well is that they all had an accountant and bookkeeper. And so I thought, well, they don't have figures. They have to learn bookkeeping, and they don't like it because they want to be an entrepreneur. They lost their dreams, and they have an accountant. And if you look back in history, the function of an accountant is helping entrepreneurs, helping them forward. Entrepreneurs go to the accountant, asking them for advice. They are the trustworthy person in every city. And now they are not anymore, because why? That's what I thought, well, it's very strange. So I thought, well, if that's very strange, I talked to a lot of entrepreneurs and asked them, am I mad, or are the accountants mad, or how do you see it? And then they said, well, no, you're seeing the right way. We really want to have somebody who can help us with our dream, with the steering of our company, and also with our figures. So I said, well, now I have a clear vision about how the accountancy should be in the future. So I went to a lot of accounting firms and said, well, I'm going to help you to change, to become more human, to become more sustainable, to really help entrepreneurs instead of only processing administration and only making as much money as you can. Well, the surprising reaction was that they said, well, we don't want to have you because what we are doing is right and we don't want to change. So, yeah, well, do something else was then the question. Well, and then I thought, well, if they don't want me and if I see this is correct and if the entrepreneurs want me to do it, then I have to start it self. So I started, about 4 years ago, I started the cooperative Manifesto, in which we are coaching and guiding entrepreneurs to come close to their dreams. And we are doing that by coaching and guiding them on their goals, not only on their business goals, but on their personal goals and their societal relevance. Because we feel that if you're doing the right things and if you develop yourself and you have social relevance, then you will be financially profitable as well on the long-term run. So that's what we started, a cooperative where our clients, our medium-sized businesses are a member, are in fact owner of our company. And we feel comfortable because we're working with them and we're working together with them, and they're also helping us to change the accounting sector. Because it's very important to change the financial industry, because if we change the financial industry where money is the most important thing, then we can change all the businesses in all the world. So that's why we started in the financial industry. And then something very nice happened, something very nice happened. A lot of our members, they said, we want to let our company grow, but we don't really, not on the money side, on profit as a goal, but we want to grow on our values. But we have a problem, because the only way you can steer your company is on the balance sheet. And if we steer our company on the balance sheet, then we have to make that as nice as possible. Then we have to make as much profit as we can. And we don't want that, because if we are doing that, and Kees pointed it out very clearly in his presentation, that if you make as much profit as you can, then it will go at the expense of the people and of the earth. And we don't want that. So they said, well, we need really another instrument than the balance sheet. So that was the first indication. And at the same time, some of the investors we know came to us and they said, well, we want to give loans or invest in companies, and we don't, and we get back financial results, but we want to have less financial result if you can show us that there's also another result, more like a society result. And then that came together, and then Kees, who's a member of our board of inspiration, he said, what would it be great if you were the first accounting firm in the world who's helping their companies to steer on their values and not on money as a goal. So that's why we started with the scale of significance about I think 1.5 years ago. I started this with Karen, and Karen is an organization of philosopher, and we just started in some evenings, some afternoons, to just think about what would we ask the companies, what questions would we ask to see how significant they are, or how their values could be made visible. So we started to point out questions, we started to collect them, and we started to work on that, and then from then we wanted to apply them to the values of the companies. But then we got stuck and we didn't know how to go further. And then we thought, well, if we're here, we were advised that we had to do it in another way, to turn it around, or well, then we thought, well, the thing to do is now make it public and see whether people are thinking that they would like us to develop this, and maybe they can help us with developing this further. So we made it public, and then a lot of people reacted on this, not only friends of ours, but also on social media. And in a few days' time, more than 100 or 200 people were really reacting to us and helping us and saying, well, we also want this to happen. We want also to have a tool on which you can steer your company on values. So we organized, and last December in the Circle building in Amsterdam, we organized a creathon, because we thought, well, we can't speak to all those hundreds of people. We are going to collect them in one meeting and then are going to develop further. And then we organized it last December. The ABN AMRO said, well, you can do it in our building. And the building was in the middle of the big companies, the banking district in Amsterdam. So we found it very good to be present there to speak about values. And Ralph was one of the participants, of course. And that resulted in the start of, at the one side, a community, and on the other side, developing a tool. The community of collecting people who are already working on the subject, or just were interested in how to evaluate a company or make values visible. Yeah, I'm just 2 minutes and then I'll round up. 1 minute, okay. So we started then the community, in which already a few hundred people are a member, and what we are doing within the community within Holland, or also in Europe or outside Europe, is that we ask the question to people in society, why is money so dominant in our society, as we know that our values are more important to them. And we asked a lot of people who were working in the financial district, who were going down there by lunch, we asked them a few questions about what's important in their lives. And I can ask you the same question. I will point out somebody and then I stop. If I ask you, what's most important in your life, what would you answer me? Yeah, your life. Happiness. And if I would ask you to give you money to get it happy, to extract that in money, is that possible to? No, it's not. And I asked those same questions to the people in the business district who were going out for lunch. And they had the same answers as you had. And then I thought, well, and then I said to him, but now you're going back to your company. And then you're going to talk only about money. While you're now saying that values are more important to you and you can't translate them into money. So that was really for them an eye-opener. And that's what we're doing. On the one side, building that community. On the other side, we are developing a tool with a great developing team of about 6 or 7 people, which Ralph is part of it, and also Magdalena and some other experts. And we're doing that on a voluntary basis. And Martina will tell more about that.
Thank you.
Erik, please have a seat.
I feel that I don't really fit with my heels on this beautiful background. So I was considering to take my shoes off, but then I think it's way too hippie. So anyway, I'm Magdalena. Nice to meet you. And before I go to the content, I would like to sincerely express my gratitude for being part of this conference, which apparently it's more than a conference, it feels like a movement. And it's great to see that initiatives from all the corners and all the levels and all generations are active and contributing to this transition, which is necessary. So, yoo-hoo! So I'm Magdalena Matei. I'm originally from Romania. And I have to say it's rather special for me to stand here and talk about the soft side of the business because I'm more of a facts person. I like Excels a lot and numbers and models, but I also like to go out of my comfort zone. And back at my home in Romania, we didn't really talk much about our emotions or feelings, or we didn't really express them in words very specifically, expressively, but I always felt the love of my grandma and the discipline of my father and the commitment of my mother and the warm interaction with my cousins when we were playing. But anyway, that was back home. I went to college, came here to Rotterdam as well, to Erasmus. Great times, also great warm interactions. I started working for PwC, Sustainability Responsible Governance. So, wow, PwC is doing really cool things. I've been working there for 7 years, and I did great projects for big corporations, and I had the opportunity to see inside of corporation how it works and what it takes to lead change. But what it also struck me is that the higher you get in the decision-making tree, the less warm interaction is between people. We become so mechanical. There is this mechanism of business, and if you do this, you're going to get this result, and you have this role, and this is your hierarchy, and you have to sit there, and it's not that exaggerated, I know, but it felt for me like this. So I started wondering, do the business mechanisms have to be so cold? Can we not be the same as we are interacting with our direct, maybe family members? And what is the value of those values? So I started looking around, and since 2 years I'm an entrepreneur and also an advisor in terms of sustainability. I met Ralph and Erik, and they had the same questions. And I was like, wow, cool. And there are people who dare to ask the questions out loud, because I think that we more or less have the same questions and not always dare to ask them out loud, especially in publics and somewhere where there's a camera especially. But we start working together at a tool that Erik introduced. And in the end, as an Excel person, I want to get things very clear and maybe operationalize them. So we had like 6 meetings, I think, with experts of the industry, I call them. They're in any case senior people who have a lot of experience out of the corporate world and entrepreneurial world and also public sector. And we started a discussion. Okay, what are we talking about? How can we materialize values, like intrinsic values? So then we came with the approach of backcasting. So we knew that we want to go to a green and open inclusive economy. But how does a green, open, inclusive economy looks like? So we know a little bit how it looks like, and thank God, Bill and Ralph had done some research as well on the principles. What type of principles would a green, open, inclusive economy have? And there are 9 principles, and there are intangible principles, of course, like humbleness and relevance and reciprocity and circularity and also mutuality connectedness, redundancy, modularity, adaptability. So it was for us a good start enough to start talking, to narrow our field of work, our research. The next step would be, okay, so if we would like to materialize these principles in a daily interaction on a business level, so in a day-to-day you come to your work, how in God's sakes would you feel that humbleness is present at your work? How would you recognize that? So we thought, you would recognize behavior. You can see humbleness in somebody's behavior. So maybe we can find that tangibility in the behavior. But then looking at the behavior of different 9 principles, it seems like a lot. So then we start, how brains are working, we start clustering. So we thought, okay, when you look at mutuality, connectedness, and humbleness, it's in fact a feeling of togetherness. We are doing this together. When you look at relevance and circularity and reciprocity, it is more like a systematic progress kind of aspects. And adaptability, modularity, and redundancy, it's more like a balance aspect. And then we would ask ourselves, okay, but what type of behavior would you see in a business day on the different levels? So on a nano level, on a personal level, on a micro level, so it means on an organizational level, a meso on a societal level, and a planet, our Gaia, that we all know. I don't have to explain that. And you see the word love. We were looking at, Erik is laughing. I'm always uncomfortable talking about love. No, because in our discussions, in our with our group, we always came to the common denominator, but what is in fact we are talking about? It's attention, it's commitment, it is, yeah, but this is also love. Love for yourself, love for the other person next to you, love for the society, and love for the planet. Why wouldn't you call it like it is? So we have the 4 levels, not on an individual level, organizational, and meso and planet, and we have now an Excel. Yes. So I was happy. So we start identifying on every level. What in fact, if we are talking about togetherness and on a nano level, what are we talking about in fact? And we said, okay, on a nano level, that would mean that at least you are self-aware about your role. Who are you? What role are you playing? And you are investing time in order to determine that. On a micro level, we would be talking about collaboration and instead of competition, for example. On a meso level, an organization would think as behavior on a longer term than just on a shorter term vision. And these are, by the way, a few examples. There are more aspects that we are still trying to cluster, and but I'm just giving you a summary. With respect to balance, on a personal level, you are in balance in an organization. At the moment that in that organization, you have the time to think and reflect. You are not fully, you don't book your agenda 100% on operational things, for example. You also get the opportunity to reflect about what you do, what your organization do, and about yourself as well. On a micro level, so again, love for for each other, we would see a consistent way of working, so not changing your way of working. And on a meso level, of course, we see a donut economy. Everybody sees a donut economy here, right? And on a planet level, we would like to see the foot and handprints of the organizations in their annual reports or in their strategy visions. And if we look from a progress perspective, we would like to see relearning. We were talking today about learning and how difficult, in fact, it is to unlearn things. So give yourself the space and time to relearn things. And on a micro level, in order to see the progress, to create the progress, you have to speak openly. And on a meso level, we'd like to measure impact. And in the end, yeah, I think somewhere it's also the continuum, the strategy continuum, that we would like to get all of us to regeneration. And this is more or less where we are now with our beautiful group of people. And we are open for input and ideas. And if you have an idea on how can you make the invisible visible, how to make it tangible, and not to make it measurable in financial value, please come to me or Erik or Ralph. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you. Please have a seat as well. Should I say that I'm in love with a scale of significance? I think I should. So yeah, this has been very interesting work over the last, I think, most couple of months, really since December, and we're just a couple of months down the road. And the very wonderful thing is that this working group that we're having there, it's just a couple of people, like 6, 7, 8 people, different backgrounds, and we all come into the room with totally different opinions. And then suddenly something happens in the room that by the end of the session we're still thinking we've made progress. So that is a rather awkward experience, you could even call it, but it has been interesting. So, you know, there are not just these examples there are more, and please talk to Magdalena and Erik if you want to be involved or want to see the most or the latest version and want to be involved in some way. It is a huge experiment, and I think maybe for the next iteration we don't even go further. We just let it be applied.
Yeah, we're going to test it.
Just test it and ask others, you know, what would you do under self-awareness? You know, or do you want something else, and how would you measure that? And then bring together a sort of a collective of experiences from different applications and see where the overlaps are. That might be the next step, actually, for the scale of significance, and then see where we get. So those were 3, I think, wonderful examples from very, very different origins and perspectives. Just wanted to showcase how much power there is behind these instruments. If you just go the extra mile, if you accept breakthrough through breakout, you know, there is no breakthrough without a certain level of breakout in some way. You know, a completely different way of accounting for each other, a completely different way of thinking about healthcare, a completely different way of organizing the value of life cycle assessments. So these are all breakouts out of the usual suspects, so to say. And from that perspective, I love working with all of you on these cases. Please find them. I want to directly open up for questions because we have one more session then to follow, and we want to do a little stretch the legs exercise in between so that we're not falling asleep before the last session. So just looking around, do you guys have questions for any of the 3? And would like to know a little bit more about what they did? Otherwise, I would have questions, of course. There is one question over there, a second question over there. Let's start with the lady first, and then with John.
Hi, hello, my name is Usha, and I'm from KPMG Sustainability, and I was quite curious with the last scale of significance, as you just explained, Magdalena, on how would you propose to implement it? Is it meant to be measured? Is it meant to be just a way of acting within an organization? Or, well, just curious to know what the actual implications in the organization are.
Okay. Let's take that question and then go to John for the next one. Yeah, you can just go on. Yeah.
So our idea is for the tool to be like a mirror for the organization. So for us, just triggering the right conversations on the right levels, that's already setting something in motion. The next step would be, yes, to make it visual. So we are now talking with artists and people who are think differently than us Excel people, and to create something else. And that's what we like about this development, that it offers such a big room for creativity and creating totally something new, trying at least.
Erik, you want to add something to
Yeah.
that?
And we're, because you were asking about the implementation, we are also having a lot of context with the financial industry in Holland. So one of the big insurance company already worked with us and is going to introduce it in the company as well. And we are talking now to the big banks in Holland to do the same. So we try to start with the financial industry because they have the most impact if they are going to steer the companies on values instead of money only.
All right, John.
Good afternoon. My name is John Dagenvos from Tedels Tilburg University. In my institute, we are measuring things at local and regional level. So we do a lot of sustainability impact assessment at local and regional level. And actually, it's also a level at which you could organize people, because at community level, at neighborhood level, for instance, when you talk about health problems, then that's an organizational level in which you could organize people, but you can empower people. For instance, if you talk about LCA, we did material flow analysis at regional level and to see how circularity could work. I was wondering, at least for the two ladies at the coach over there, how have you ever considered using this regional level as a level of not only of analysis, because that's the one thing, but actually of making things work and trying to make things change?
I start?
Yeah.
And yeah, so we are certainly familiar with material flow analysis, and this regional life cycle assessment is only starting, but it's taking up, and it's getting very different people in the game. And these are the very applied, they're so grounded in comparison to our academic community. And so we can see there's a huge opportunity. And when we were preparing that conference, Ralph said to me, "Oh, you will going to meet Joe Brewer." And because we have a strong LCA community in Latin America, and they are until now totally unlinked to the regenerative community. And so that's what I want to explore in one of the breaks, what could happen there.
When I look at what we're doing, we're experimenting in neighborhoods, Rotterdam, Eindhoven, to try to get the power from the neighborhoods, because then it works. It doesn't work when we bring it to them. They have to already get started on some way. And then we're trying to measure also in the communities. So regional, we're seeing that works.
We have some tools available there.
That's good. We'll find each other. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Are there more questions? I see Jesse with a question. Any more hands? Any more? No? Okay, then we'll, oh yeah, sorry, that's that microphone. Yeah.
Yeah, Martina, I was just wondering if you've ever heard of economic impact assessment. It's at least the way I do it, which is divide the global economy up in sectors. It's so much more inclusive that it makes LCA 400% in error. So I'm wondering why it hasn't broken through in the conversations. I've been trying to talk to people about it for some years. I have a 2011 paper.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. I wouldn't say it has not gained quite attention, and there is something that's called hybrid LCA, and you combine it. One of the big topics that has generic data and I would say also the statistics data from the economic impact assessment. They're generic, and they are okay on the macro level and partly on the meso level.
But in the moment when you want to improve a specific system and a specific product, you are just not accurate enough. So we have to link these types of data and bring them together. So you cannot only live with statistics data, but you have to link the different data sources so that they become consistent. And that is one of the gaps we have right now.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any more hands. So also in the interest of time and knowing that we have one more session to go, which is another one of these 75-minute sessions before we actually finish the day, let's give ourselves 5 minutes stretch break, I would call it. All get up, stretch a little bit, say hi to your neighbor if you haven't talked to the person. And that gives us the opportunity to change the microphones to the next group. And we'll continue here in 5 minutes. Thank you very much.